What is up, people of YouTube? I'm your host Vernon. This is Boulder Marina. Let's fish that. Alright, ladies and gents, we have two rods in the water. The first one there, the white one, that has some anchovies out into the deep water. And the second one, on that simply I just have a night crawler, entire night crawler on a hook, that's also out into deeper water. And this is a particularly good spot to do so. It drops off quite quickly into deep water. To the side here we have a bit of a shallow flat, but it drops off into deep water on this side. Now I know lots of people have caught some carp in this area, as well as lots of stripers being catched around here. And I know someone like Victor from Victorious Fishing, he quite regularly catches some good smallmouth bass out in this particular area. So we got our baits out there soaking. Whenever you have baits or a lure in the water, you always have a chance of catching some fish. But we actually do stand quite a good chance of getting skunked today, and that is quite simply because of some changes that's happening here at Lake Mead. And that's what this video is going to be about today, these changes and how we as fishermen need to adapt to these changes to ensure we get on some fish. Okay, so what are these changes that I'm talking about? Well, up first is going to be the sun. If you're trying to get out to these waters in the middle of summer before the sun rises, you have to be here before 5 a.m. But as of right now, if you get out here by 6, 6:30, you still get the sunrise. And that of course means that our days are getting shorter. The sun is rising later and setting earlier, so the days are shortening. Now alongside that, of course, the sun is also moving a bit lower. Midsummer, the sun is directly above us, shining directly down on us, whereas at the moment it's more at an angle, and it's this angle that's very important. The sun kind of loses its intensity. If you're out here at 5 p.m., you'll see that although there's still lots of light around, it's not as intense, not as strong. And that is one of the biggest factors impacting our waters, because all of the grass we have in these waters are starting to die off. Now if you throw some bottom jig out there and you move it through the grass, you can feel the grass breaking. You're no longer getting snagged in the grass, it's actually breaking, it's turning brown. And that is the first major thing that's changing. The grass is dying off, meaning that the bait fish that was hiding in the grass is dying, they have nowhere to hide. And the predatory fish that was sitting just outside of the grass, they're also starting to look for some better structure to hide in. But being Lake Mead, of course, we don't have lots of trees in the water, nor do we have any bridges or pilings with good structure for fish to hide. We do have some docks and tires, but they're kind of floating around, not ideal structure. And that completely changes both the bait fish and the predatory fish, their behavior. And that is why a good spot in summer can suddenly become kind of dull when it comes to the fall. Now before I get to how we're going to combat this, there's some more changes we need to talk about, and all these changes are linked to the seasonal changes as well. But the second one would be the temperatures in the water. Now in the last video when I went out onto the flow tube, I could actually feel differences in the water. I could feel cold spots and hot spots as I was going along, and this is important because during summer you have a hot layer at the top and some cold water at the bottom. In between you'll find the thermic line. That's where the fish love to sit. But during fall, as the plants start dying off, there is a natural process that happens in all bodies of water, and that is upwelling. You get a cycle of mixing water, mixing the cold and warm water, and that has a major shock on the fish, especially something like bass. They stop feeding when this happens, when there's change in the water temperatures, and it does take them quite a while to get used to it. And that is what I was experiencing, the cold and hot spots all over the lake. That is this upwelling happening, changing the water temperatures and how the fish are reacting and where to find the fish. All right, but now we kind of know the differences in what's happening out there. Now, how do we solve these problems? Now, of course, these changes are going to happen each and every year, and there's lots of factors in why they are happening. I think this year, with all the monsoon rain we've been getting, it's happening a bit earlier than the previous years. But this is a process that's going to happen, and you need to find a way around it. Now, of course, different fish behave differently, and that is going to be the same. Something like carp and catfish will still be feeding in the flat areas. In fact, they start feeding more regularly, trying to fatten up for winter. But this again changes when you go to something like the park ponds. For some reason it seems that the bigger fish slow down feeding this time of year, and you get all the small fish. It's like they're giving the young ones a chance to fatten up for winter. Whereas in these big lakes, the fish tend to continue feeding. But the big problem is going to be finding the predatory fish, something like largemouth, smallmouth bass, and striped bass. Like I said, with the grass dying, these fish are looking for different places to hide, different places to find bait fish, and that's going to be the important thing, bait fish. The bait fish no longer have places to hide, so there's safety in numbers for them, so they school together, and that's where the predatory fish will be, finding these schools of bait fish, chasing them up shallow, chasing them up to shallow areas where it's easier for them to grab one or two every once in a while. Now this means it can be very difficult to fish during fall, but it can also be some of the best fishing out there. The important thing you need to be doing is surveying the water, looking for bait fish. You can be in the best known spot. If there's no bait fish around, you won't find predatory fish. You might get lucky with some carp or catfish, but it tends to be that the bass that were in here moving out looking for the bait fish. So your best bet is going to be going to different coves, finding the bait fish. Where you find bait fish, there will be predatory fish. That's where you need to be fishing. Of course, anchovies will work, but when there's lots of bait fish around, these fish tend to swim past your anchovies chasing bait fish. So maybe consider getting a casting net and catching some of the bait fish yourself and lifelining them out there. Above here in the little card, I will link to a video for how to throw a cast net, if that's something you want to get into, trying to find bait fish and try and lifeline some bait fish out there. Now, like I said, this is a pretty good spot. I wanted to go closer to the little tower thing we have out there where it drops off into deeper water, but we have other fishermen fishing there at the moment, so I'm left to fish here in the shallows. We'll see if we get any bites here. If not, we might move spots a bit later on. But like I said, we're not expecting to get that many fish out here because I can already see the water is kind of dead. No bait fish around this area. Alright, ladies and gents, I moved spots. I'm now fishing a bit deeper. Not as much grass out here, so I'm going to throw out the baits there for a while, let them soak. We'll see. Still have nightcrawler and anchovies. See if we get any hits on that. If not, we'll pack away one of the rods, throw around some lures, see if there's maybe any fish around. Okay, so I'm putting away the one rod. We're leaving the one with anchovies out there, but I'm going to swap out the second rod for something with some lures. I'm going to throw around some lures, see if we get anything excited chasing something, rather than just soaking the baits. But before we get to that, I got a tiny little hook on there. Let's see if we can get a fish at least. I mean, this is a fishing channel, so at least let's get a fish before we start throwing around some lures. And there we go. We got ourselves a green sunfish. Green sunfish are voracious. They'll go for the baits before any other fish. That's why we're getting them first. And they are still a game fish, so you're not allowed to lifeline game fish in the state of Nevada, so we can't lifeline this little guy. So let's get him back to the water. Right, so at least we got a fish, tiny little green sunfish. Let's let him go. And off he goes. So nothing super exciting, but at least we got a fish. Still have a little piece of nightcrawler on there. I'm going to catch a few more. Then we go to the lures. As simple as that. Cast it out. 3 or 4 of them going for it. When they're that eager, they're sure to swallow it. This little guy took our nightcrawler, so we're going to stop with that for now. Thanks, little guy. And off he goes. Alright, so how do I know the grass is dying? Well, quite simple. Just dropped it. This was on my little hook there. When you're casting out and bringing back in, I don't even have to rip it through the grass or something. It just pulls out the grass. This is how I know the grass is busy dying. Normally your lure would get stuck and you have to break your line. But when the grass is dying, it comes out pretty easy. And I think this might be a better indication. See how easily we get our lure through the grass and rip the grass out. The grass is busy dying, so it's easy to get it out of the way. So I've been throwing around all sorts of lures, especially bait imitations, through some crawfish imitations as well, but so far only seeing carp jumping in this area. I haven't seen any signs of any other fish. Some small green sunfish everywhere, but no other major fish. But at least it's still a pretty view, all the colourful mountains in the background. Alright, so our automatic hook setter just went off. Let's see if there's a fish on there. Feels like we have something on there. First sign of a fish for today. And of course, using anchovies, we can catch any type of fish. Oh, he just popped off. That was a channel catfish. I could see him, but my lead weight got stuck on that rock and I broke off my entire rig. Now that's going to cost me dear. If you only get one fish this time of year, you need to be able to land it. Me losing that channel catfish, that now means that was maybe my only fish for today and I lost it. Now of course that hook will rust out, so no harm to that fish. That hook will rust out in a couple of weeks, so it's not a problem that that fish swam off with the hook. But as expected, channel catfish and carp, it's what I'm seeing around in this area. I'm not seeing any stripers, and I think that's because the fish are moving out looking for the bait fish. And unless you want to be targeting carp and catfish, I think we also need to start looking for those bait fish. Alright guys, having just lost that fish, no one to blame but myself. I stopped reeling, gave my lead weight some chance to hit the bottom, and it got snagged. Mistake on my part, and a costly mistake, but luckily we got some small green sunfish, so we at least have some fish, and we got to see that one channel catfish at least. Now yes, the temperatures have gone down, maybe 80, maybe 90 degrees Fahrenheit, but it is still pretty warm out. That means the catfish and the carp will continue to feed, and they will do so until it gets really cold out there. But don't get fooled, all the other fish, they're in a fall pattern. Might not yet be fall for us here in Vegas, but for the fish, grass dying, water temperatures changing, it's definitely fall for them. And we need to change our tactics using lures that look like shad, maybe getting some shad, finding the bait fish, finding the balls of fish and fishing in those spots. Now, if you're one of the people that regularly fishes Lake Mead, please go down in the comments and tell us if you found some spots where there's bait fish swimming around. It's not just for me, it's for the rest of the community as well. If we know where we can go fishing, where we can find fish. So if you know of anything, please go down in the comments and tell us. And feel free to ask any questions down in the comments while you're down there. If you've not subscribed to the channel yet, consider doing so. Hitting the big red subscribe button. It will turn grey saying subscribed. You can always hit the little bell notification next to that. That will just notify you of when I upload videos. I do weekly videos for you guys. And even though we didn't have tons of action out there, this is more an informative video, so please do give me a little thumbs up for the information. Alright guys, but good luck on your striper boil hunts. Thank you guys for watching, and like always, I'll see you next time.